Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crossing Borders. I'm Mike Ginn. That's Extremo Alex Soto. Back again to share some awesome insights from south of the border, Mexican MMA. Not much going on right now as far as cards. You know, we got Luke's coming up in February. We've done a couple profiles of different fighters, but this weekend, Alex, we got some big stuff going on in the UFC. But before we get to that, make sure we pay the bills. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this is on FightersFirst.shop, Fighters First Network. Go ahead and get something dope. Get the Extremo collection. Show Alex some love. FightersFirst.shop, where you can get all your latest and greatest combat sports apparel. That said, Alex, you ready to break down this big fight coming up this weekend?
Let's do it, man. Let's do it, man. I'm pumped up for this.
All right. Brandon Moreno, Deiveson Figueiredo 3. The trilogy, it's 1-0-1 because the first one was a draw. Though you could argue Figueiredo won the first one because if it wasn't for the point deduction, he would have won on the cards. Second one, Moreno left no doubts. So it could be 1-1 depending on how you look at it. But technically, Moreno does have the edge. We do know from history's sake that whoever wins the second one usually wins the third one. But Alex, you're the pro fighter. You're the pro commentator. I want to get your insights this weekend. What do you think happens in this trilogy?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, the matchup here is really, really well. And we've seen that already. We saw that on the first fight, how it went the whole 5 rounds, and it was back and forth. Yep, I had Figueroa winning that first fight as well. So if it wasn't for that point deduction, it wouldn't have been a draw. I agree with that 100%. But I'm also a statistics guy, and looking at the history of UFC trilogies, I was reading an article that really kind of, puts it on perspective, of how these trilogies have historically gone, right? But and they have some sense into it. So
like I said, normally whoever wins the second one has a good favorite for the third.
So in the first fight, the underdog has a 40% chance of winning that fight. About 40 or 41% of winning the underdog winning the fight. In this case, it was Brandon Moreno who was the underdog, and he did not beat the odds that day. If we're looking at it in kind of as the fight in itself, even though it was a draw, he did lose that first fight. The second fight, he was considered the underdog into the second fight. And Moreno had about roughly the same chances, about 40% of the underdog winning that second fight. Now, he won in a crazy, spectacular fashion. I mean, he finished that fight in the first round, rear naked choke, and he outworked Figueroa out.
Third round.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. In the third round. So then, as we go into the third fight, all right, as it goes for trilogies in the UFC,
you could argue it was over in the first round because he was beating his ass for 3 rounds. But third
exactly.
round.
But as it goes in statistics in the UFC, the third fight, the underdog has a 19% chance of winning that fight. And guess who's the underdog going into this third fight?
Probably Figueiredo.
Figueiredo is. That's exactly right. He's a minus 175 or something crazy like that. He's a big underdog.
Yeah, I would guess so because of the way the second one ended.
Right. So this is going to be very interesting how the underdog has now changed. So going into this one, it looks like the chances for Figueroa to actually win this fight is looking very slim for him, as well as how that second fight went. I mean, that second fight was just a one-sided beatdown for Brandon Moreno.
Now you got me looking up the odds for
I want to know
this one. But that said, MMA isn't fought in a sports book. You know very well that sometimes those odds don't mean shit. People in Vegas aren't stepping in the cage getting punched in the face. Right now, Moreno's minus 175, Figueiredo's plus 145.
145, yeah.
And if I go back to the first fight, both fighters took the fight on short notice, right? It was like a 6-week turnaround or something crazy like that. Figueiredo beat Perez really quick. Moreno got the win over Royval when Royval popped his shoulder out, and he got the quick sub right there. So both guys had a quick finish, quick turnaround. December 2020, they had the first fight. A fight that I think Moreno won a lot of fans over because his toughness and his grit, and he just kept coming, where Figueiredo was landing bombs and bombs and bombs. You just couldn't believe that Moreno was still there. And then Moreno would have a flurry, and you'd be like, oh my God, can he pull off the upset? But at the end of the day, it was Figueiredo who won most of the rounds. He had, I think, a deduction for a low blow or something like that, or an eye poke or something. I don't remember what he lost the point for.
Right.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it was a low blow.
Low blow, okay. So, yeah, because he kept doing the leg kicks, and it kept kind of coming up high. That said, both guys fought completely different the second time. Like the first time, Figueiredo came out fast. The second time, it was Moreno that came out fast, didn't wait around, got the jump on Figueiredo, and Figueiredo never got going in that second fight. For 3 rounds, he was laboring, he was trying to get through it, and Moreno was just pummeling him to where the rear naked choke was almost like just a way out because it was already pretty much over at that point. He just hopped on his back and finished him off.
Yeah.
Everything statistically that you mentioned, everything passing the eye test tells you Moreno is going to run through him in this third fight. Moreno's the younger fighter. Moreno's going uphill in his career. But the one thing that tells me, wait a second, is how Deiveson Figueiredo bounces back after losses. He's only had one other loss in his career, and that was to Formiga, who probably it's one of the few opponents they have in common other than Alex Pantoja. And it's kind of opposite, right? Like Figueiredo lost to Formiga and Moreno beat him.
Right.
And then Moreno lost twice to Pantoja and Figueiredo beat him. So, you can't really look at common opponents too much. But if you do look at how he bounced back, right after that Formiga loss, he beat Pantoja. He choked out Elliott. He ran through Benavidez twice and choked out Perez on his way to where we are now.
Yeah.
He got better. Now, you're talking about a 34-year-old fighter who's been around. We have always known about his weight cut issues, which is another thing. Like, he's like a step away from the bantamweight division. We've been talking about that forever.
Yeah.
But since he's been champion, he hasn't had a problem making weight. He's never missed weight as a champion in his couple fights.
That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that he doesn't have a problem.
Doesn't mean it's a problem, but it means he at least took it seriously enough to make weight.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. But, man, it takes it out on you, especially making it 125 pounds. Boy, that's a tough weight cut, even for him, for that weight class. So maybe as you get older, losing that weight becomes way more difficult.
Yeah, 100%.
And, so there's definitely that aspect of it. And he could have had a bad weight cut in that second fight against Moreno. And it could be that it had a big influence on him, on his performance. And who knows what other drama he might have had in the gym and in his training camp. I didn't hear of anything coming out.
So that's the funny thing, though. The first time he actually had stomach issues and still did the fight on 6 weeks' notice and arguably won, except for it was a draw because of the point deduction. Right. The second time, he had almost no excuses. They did come out say later he had a rough weight cut, but he had 6 months. And just like now, he has 6 months because it was June last year they had the second fight. Here we are in January. He's had 6 months. If you can't plan your weight for a rematch that is coming, like you knew the trilogy, everybody knew the trilogy was coming. The only other name, even an option, is Alex Pantoja at this point. And even Alex knew he had to wait for this trilogy to play out before anybody could go anywhere in this division.
Yep.
If he misses weight or has any kind of trouble with weight, it's on him, right? Because, like, you're a professional. That's 6 months. As hard as it is, you should know what you got to do, when you got to start cutting it. And otherwise, just go ahead and go to bantamweight. There's no shame in the fact that he was a champion. No. I know it leaves a bad taste getting stopped like that. And he's a very proud guy. We all know the God of War is very proud. And one thing I will give him massive credit for is his sportsmanship, because after he lost to Moreno, he was Moreno's biggest fan. He was like lifting his arm up, hugging him, putting him on his shoulders. I don't even think Moreno realized he won the title until you saw Figueiredo kind of boosted him up, and then it kind of like hit Moreno. Like you could see his face changing, and that's when he has that famous crying picture that we're using kind of in the promo for this episode.
Right.
He didn't even know he was champion at that point. He's like, I want to fight. Okay, cool. I'm happy. Oh, wait, I got a belt? And then you see all the emotion of becoming the first ever Mexican-born champion in the UFC coming out completely.
Yeah, you're
So
true. You're so true to that, and that plays a psychological aspect too for Figueredo because, man, I keep messing up his name, but he's able to, it might have been a quite relieving for him to
it's
lose
pretty
the
sad when I'm the gringo getting his name right.
yeah, but it could be a relieving thing for him because he is essentially the stress of being the champ,
No
everything
pressure.
against you, the I can't imagine the amount of pressure that he had going into that second fight, knowing that you pulled a draw with him, so you're not really yet the undisputed champ, and then you go through this whole process. It's a draw. You come into the second one, a lot of pressure, weight cut, the whole mental aspect of that. I mean, being a champion requires, the mental edge of like, it's just I can't get to that kind of mentality, man. These guys were. That's why I admire these champs, man, with the kind of pressure. You look at somebody like John Jones, who's a champ who's an incredible athlete, the best in the world, probably the best who has ever stepped into
But
the
his
cage.
personal life is a mess.
Right, and it's affected his mental game, and being that champion, it requires. I mean, it must. He's like at the cusp, it just holds him. He holds probably the stress of being the champ, so much, it really affects his personal life.
So
But
before we continue with this fight talk, let me ask you that. So one of the reasons why I'm very on the fence about who to pick for this fight, Brandon Moreno, brand new champion, representing an entire country. There's been dozens of Brazilian champions. That's not new for Figueiredo.
right,
Brandon Moreno has been on a world tour and I mean, as much as he can with COVID and everything, but he's been on this tour, a media tour, especially going through Mexico and the United States and being put on this pedestal, doing all these media commitments since becoming the champ. How do you think that affects him going into this fight? Because Figueiredo, like Moreno, the second fight, Figueiredo has no pressure this fight.
yeah.
Nobody's even picking him. How does this fight play on Moreno, who now has all the pressure?
Oh man, you know what? He's such a natural, man. I don't know, but I can tell you that he gave it his. I mean, the performance that he did the first time around, when nobody gave him a chance, he just came out and just. I mean, it just shows the type of. You don't become a champ without having the mental edge for it, And I think Brandon Moreno has that mental capacity. And going into that second round, he came with the same enthusiasm, came with the same, strategy and the same kind of commitment to each of those punches, man. It's incredible to watch and witness. Really, being a former fighter myself, watching Brandon Moreno perform the way he did in those last two fights was like really inspiring. It was a beautiful performance.
I do want to point out, I think that's the first
Talent.
time Alex ever said former fighter. But okay.
Yeah, yeah, former fighter. But boy, man, it's incredible to watch. It's really I admire that about Brandon Moreno is that he's a stud, man. He's a game day fighter, and he's able to really get into the game and get into the zone and perform at the highest level he possibly can. And I think he's coming in with that same mentality into this third fight. I think he's going to perform just as good. I don't think the media has really affected him much. I think COVID really helped in the amount more of excess he could have done.
Yeah,
We
it would
saw
have
that
been
with
way worse. Yeah.
like Ronda Rousey, right? Remember, she was like she was a little bit overwhelmed with all the media attention she was getting, and she was trying to accommodate, where she had to actually put it in the contract to really suppress all the media obligations that she had to do. And I think COVID has been a good help for Brandon, keeping him off trouble, keeping him away from all those distractions, and really focusing on this fight. So man, it's been a perfect storm for Brandon Moreno.
So a little inside knowledge, because you are around Tijuana and everything. Has he been training like normal? Has he been doing everything he's supposed to, as far as you hear?
Well, I mean, I don't go out and hang out with those guys out there too often, but I can tell you that the border was closed for the majority of this past year, and the fighters have been dedicating the working out that gym and had been fighting and training. There's fights there, like I think there's Ultimate Warrior Challenge, which is the MMA league that's in Tijuana.
Yeah, we just talked
They
about that last episode. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually have the fights at the gym. So it is a freaking hotbed for mixed martial arts. and all the people actually flocking over to Tijuana to train there. I mean, some of the best of Latin America are training there. So, um, I couldn't answer you. The question is, has he been training every day? I don't follow him that closely to that respects of what he's been doing and what he's been dedicating. But I can tell you, following him on social media, occasionally going out with the guys out in Mexico City, in Cancun and Acapulco.
On
That
your vacations,
yeah, on my vacations, on my
your work trips.
that he's been putting on the work, man, and he's always been one of those guys that has the work ethic that's above and beyond the rest of the crowd. Sets him apart.
So looking, like I said, I'm looking on paper. You even look at the second, like there should be no question about this third fight, right? But tell me, why do I still get the sneaky suspicion that Figueiredo is going to win this third fight? Like I can't get it out of my mind that the veteran and with knockout power, because we know Figueiredo has the power advantage in this matchup.
Yeah.
The first fight, Figueiredo was kind of the one who came out a little bit faster, right? He was coming out throwing the haymakers right in the first round, took Moreno a second, kind of adjust to it, right? And then he kind of hung in there for the rest of the fight and had a lot of moments where you said, okay, Moreno might win this fight. But the first round was all Figueiredo. The second time, Moreno 1, 2, and 3 just came out the gate fast. Figueiredo never got going. If I'm in Figueiredo's camp, all I can think of is come out fast. As fast as you can, empty the gas tank in the first round. Whatever happens, happens. Because we know that Moreno is going to come out probably trying to repeat the second fight. Like every strategy says, hey, this worked. You put him on his heels, no different than what we just saw with last weekend with Calvin Kattar and Giga Chikadze. Kattar did the one thing nobody's done to Giga Chikadze. He came out and put him against the fence, right? A lot of fighters can't fight backing up. Figueiredo was one of those fighters. He started backing up. He couldn't come out as aggressive as he likes to do. He likes to control the center of the octagon and put you on your heels. I have a feeling, I just have a deep feeling that Figueiredo wins this third fight. If nothing else, if you're one of those conspiracy theorists to set up the fourth fight. but that said, I feel like this is Figueiredo's matchup because both of them have pretty much an even drawing board, right, Alex? The weight cuts, both of them had 6 months. The travel issues, both of them are coming from different countries into America and have to have the same COVID restrictions and testing and everything else. Even though Moreno's right across the border, he still has to go through the same things coming into America that Figueiredo does. And it's in California, which is one of the tightest, as you know, vaccine passports, testing, everything. And they're doing it in Anaheim, which is right outside LA. So you know it's going to be very, very tight as far as COVID testing and stuff goes. So they got an even board as far as doing like the same necessities. But I think this is Figueiredo's matchup. I think he has the power advantage. I think if Moreno, I just feel like it's a champion's letdown. Like he had the big epic rise, and the only place to go is down. And I know Moreno is just uber talented, and I know he has all the skills to do it again.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a letdown. I don't know.
I think you. I mean, I agree with you. I think when that first performance, we got to look at the tape, right? We got 5 rounds, essentially, 8 total rounds of fight between both of these fighters. That's a lot of time for those guys to spend time with each other intimately in the cage. And I think the surprising element of the punching power of Figueiredo is now kind of like the blanket has been lifted, right? I
know
think
what to expect. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Brandon is aware of the power of the punching power, which I think was a big intimidation factor coming into that fight, right? Is look out for the power, look for the power. There's some combinations though that I saw Figueiredo miss that were really, really well placed and well timed. It was just that Brandon Moreno was just one step ahead of it.
His boxing is insane. Figueiredo's boxing is top notch.
Yeah, really good body head combinations in the league high league lead left head kick from Figueiredo kept missing. A couple of times it was blocked, and by the way that Brandon Moreno stands, he has a really forward leaning stance, with his hands kind of down.
Yeah, kind of low. Yeah,
Actually, yeah, he's really, with this kind of stand with his chin
it's
up
like he's
high.
trying to bait you in.
Right. It's absolutely a baiting, but it's also, I think, just what has worked for him. I think it's been a natural. If you look at fights from, many years ago,
It's almost like a wrestler stance, almost.
exactly. He's a very jiu-jitsu guy. He's a very talented jiu-jitsu fighter. So I think he's anticipating the ground. He's anticipating going after that, and he's baiting. You're right. But I think that combination that Figueiredo was trying to land, for 45 minutes, has been, I think it's been tuned and timed and analyzed, I think, by his training camp. So I expect to see a high head kick attack against Brandon in this third fight. And those beautiful left hooks from Figueiredo. They're really beautiful combinations.
Don't forget
heads.
Figueiredo's knees too.
Yeah,
he loves to throw that flying knee.
I do see that, especially if Brandon Moreno backs off, and if Brandon Moreno's he's walking back, then we can see some of those flying knees. Agreed. I think the first round is going to be very, very telling of how the fight's going to go.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, if it goes past 3 rounds, I got Moreno. I think distance wise, I think gas tank, I think it's Moreno all day. I think Figueiredo has to get it done in the first couple of rounds. That's his window. Come out, get him out the box, hope for a quick ref stoppage, hope a ref that, is ready to pull that trigger and gets him out quick, because we know Moreno can take a beating.
Yeah.
We saw that first fight. Moreno took bomb after bomb. Like every time I said this fight should be stopped, Moreno just hung in there in that first fight. Yeah. And I think a number of people thought Moreno should have been stopped in that first fight because of the amount of damage he was taking. But then around the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds, all of a sudden he's flipping it, and all of a sudden he's taking control of the fight. And now all of a sudden you don't know who's winning, like when you get to the end.
Right.
Second fight, no, there was no question. And I think the second fight also had a lot to do with that Figueiredo isn't used to fighting from behind. Like when he knew he was losing, especially after that first, second round, he was desperate. He was throwing desperate haymakers. He was not throwing his normal combos that you were just talking about. He was like uppercut, haymaker, head kick, falling down. In fact, I'm pretty sure I got to look back at the tape. I think that's how Moreno got on him at the end, because he missed a head kick and he slipped or something like that. And then Moreno was behind him and just peppering him until eventually he got the choke, and that was it. Up against that cage. Well, we've broken down this fight. Who do you got?
Oof, man. Yeah. It's a top.
You taking the betting favorite?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about 125-pound guys, we don't really talk about gassing out fighters, right? At this weight class. I think Figueiredo can handle the 5-rounder. I think he can stay pretty dangerous up until the end in terms of his power with that right hand, left hook, and then that step in elbow that he throws in after one of those combos. They're all very dangerous, and they lead up into the 5th round. So I would predict, I got Brandon Moreno for it, and I'm not trying to get emotional with my bets with this stuff, because he's a buddy of mine, and I really I've been admiring all his work throughout his entire career.
The tape knows, Alex. You're a fan.
But I'm a fan, right? But I'm a fan. I'd love to see him win. I'd love to see him defend the championship belt against somebody else. I'd love to see against Henry Cejudo. He called him out, I think yesterday. I saw on social media that he's blasting.
That's a whole nother subject. We just talked about the art of MMA, man. Dana's got to set Henry free. Like Henry wants to fight everybody. I didn't hear the Brandon Moreno. I know he's been calling out Sterling. I know he called out Volkanovski. Yeah. I don't know if he can still make 125 pounds because he's been out so long.
Oh, he can.
But come on, Dana. I know you got a grudge because he retired on you with no notice. Come on, man. Let Henry Cejudo fight. Come on, man. We want to see it.
Triple C, man. What else do you want, man? He's an Olympic champion. He's
two division champion. Let him fight Volkanovski for that 4th one. Come on.
Damn, can you imagine quadruple C? That's just nuts. That's crazy. I mean, but there's nothing that kid can't do, man. Apparently, man. Now he's got that sick podcast with Mike Tyson. Oh, dude.
And he's training with John Jones and Khabib, so he can handle bigger people.
Yeah.
He's been training with those dudes.
Yeah. No, it's man. That's another guy that I'm like, how did you do it, man? How did you get to the top level of everything. But that would be a fight. They've trained before in the past, and I remember I was at UFC 200 with Henry Cejudo sitting next to me, and I was talking to him about Brandon Moreno. I was like, oh, you guys should really work with this Brandon. And he goes, oh, I know Brandon Moreno, I know him. And so that was back in UFC 200, and now that kid's the champ. So it just blows my mind that he's doing it.
Well, we got a little sidetracked there about Henry Cejudo. I think Alex Pantoja is obviously the next guy on everybody's plate after this fight, but I would love to see Henry fight anybody at this point. But going to this fight, you're picking Moreno. I'm sticking with Figueiredo. I know
Okay.
I might take the L. I know I might take the L on this one. I said it on Art of MMA too. I think I might take the L on this one. But man, like everything in my gut, like you said, everything in my gut is screaming letdown. Like we've seen so many championship letdowns in all sports, not just MMA. You have this big wave of emotion, and then you come out flat the next time. He's had 6 months with the belt. He's had 6 months of media commitments. I mean, I know, COVID has limited it to, like you said, but man, I just see a letdown, and Figueiredo's just been kind of like, you just see him in like a dark room, just punching a wall with Brandon Moreno's face, like a picture of Brandon Moreno's face on there, and just like, like that's kind of what I picture Deiveson Figueiredo doing.
Yeah.
So we'll see. This Saturday night, it's taking place on the Francis Ngannou Ciro Gane card, which is a whole nother big main event to talk about on other shows. But we like to focus on Mexican MMA stuff south of the border, stuff you might not see other places. So make sure you support the show. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell if you never want to miss an episode, and head over to FightersFirst.shop. Show Alex some love. Get some of that Extremo merchandise. It's dope. I designed it myself, so I know it's dope. Anyway, definitely check it out. FightersFirst.shop. Subscribe to the Fighters First Network. We're trying to give you great content all the time, including insight from great fighters like Alex and Brandon and everybody else we got on this network that have been in the cage, been in the ring, fighting with some of these guys that we talk about and girls that we talk about all the time. So they know what they're talking about, and it makes me even question my Figueiredo pick even more if he's picking Brandon Moreno. But I'm going to stick to my guns. We'll see next week who was right and who was wrong. We'll talk a little about the fight, talk a little bit more what's coming up with looks and some other stuff going on next week. But any final words, Alex?
Hey, man, I just want to say I got Brandon Moreno. Put your money on Brandon.
All right. Go to the books with Alex. See who wins. If he loses, make sure you let him know, because his ego is like this big when he wins. Like he'll be all over my social media like, I told you so. That's why he never came back on Art of MMA last year, because he was 2-0. He didn't want to ruin his record.
Dude, undefeated.
You didn't qualify for the win, though. You had to have at least 10 wins. I made sure there was a qualifying for guests.
Okay.
I was like, he can't win with just 2. I can't let him win with 2. All right. Well, that is Crossing Borders, ladies and gentlemen. That is Extremo Alex Soto. I'm Mike Ginn. We will see you next week. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and make sure you leave a comment. Let us know what you think. We'll see you then. We're out.